Across the Park podcast is proud to be sponsored by Globe Gas and Heating. For the best kitchen and bathroom renovations, boiler servicing and repair, and central and underfloor heating in the Northwest, head over to globecentralheating.com and quote Across the Park for a free quote. Hello everybody, welcome back to Across the Park podcast. Happy Christmas. We hope you had enough turkey, sherry, chocolate, shortbread. We hope you've enjoyed your time off and enjoyed football as well. I think Everton came up a little bit short. Not so much Wolves. My guest today probably had a little better Christmas than me in relation to football. He's been on the show before. Delighted to have my friend Dave from Talking Wolves back on the show. Dave, thanks very much for coming on, mate. How's your Christmas been?
Yeah, all right. Thank you, Ian. Yeah, like you said, football's been very good. Very good Christmas presents for Wolves in regards to the football. But yeah, other than that, all good. Thank you. Thanks for having me on again.
Now, looking forward to talking a bit of football. As you know, our shows, we tend to talk to you about your football club, and so Evertonians can sort of see, you know, what the Wolves fans are thinking, opposed to just looking at the mainstream media and seeing, you know, bits and bobs. But last time you were on, you spoke to myself, and we were in August. I think it was the third game of the season, perhaps, and I think we were both quite unsure what our football clubs were going to bring us. It's been a bit of a ride for me off the field more than on it. But you guys, I'm looking at a little bit of research today. You're around 10 points away from success, being Europe, 10 points away from disaster, relegation, mid-table. Is that about right? Are Wolves a mid-table team, or do you think there's more to come, or still a little bit of a worry, perhaps?
I think probably a little bit of everything, to be honest. It was, I mean, up until, if we're talking before the Chelsea game, people asking me how I felt Wolves were doing, I just kept saying okay, because we picked up some great results, especially at home. You know, we've been fantastic at Molineux. We've beaten Manchester City, beaten Spurs. Yeah. But our away form was a real concern. You know, we were dropping a lot of points away from home. So that's what, you know, and sort of to the opposite to the City wins, we were losing games against Sheffield United. So that's why I kept saying it's okay. But I think in hindsight, if you look at where we were at the start of the season, the state of the club, the state of the coaching staff, for us to even be nowhere near the bottom three, I think is a little success for Wolves. But yeah, like you know, adding in the last two wins over Christmas, I think Wolves are in a fantastic position now. And I think, you know, if it's a big ask this weekend, but if we can get something against Everton as well, I think we can start to look up the table rather than looking over our shoulder. I think we're more than strong enough to stay in the league, no doubt. Anyway, and I think there's plenty of teams weaker than Wolves this year. But it's just, you know, there are Wolves fans possibly talking about can we make a late push to Europe? I think there's so many better teams, you know, on paper than Wolves, but it's just trying to get that consistency away from home as well, and who knows.
Yeah, it's tough, and I think you guys are probably in a good position that maybe if you navigate into January and maybe do the right business there, I think you're one of those teams that could really end the season well and maybe be similar to what I know one of your rivals don't like talking about, but maybe similar to what Villa done, where they came out of nowhere a little bit and really pushed up the league, and no one really noticed them. I think you're positioned well for that. After the West Ham defeat, I was looking at you guys thinking, are you one of the teams we've got to claw in? Because we have to claw teams in. We can't just rely on you know, staying above the three. We have to claw more in and make it a fight. And I was looking at you guys thinking, maybe. Then I watched the Chelsea game and I thought you were fantastic against Chelsea. And what I didn't like is when we beat Chelsea, people said I was only Chelsea. I don't like that, so I'm not going to go there. I'm going to stick with I thought you were absolutely brilliant against Chelsea. And it's a big game for us this Saturday. You mentioned there the coach. We spoke quite in depth about the Gary O'Neill appointment in August, and you were very honest in saying that you weren't too sure. You were willing to give the guy time, but you weren't really excited or disappointed. You were sort of a neutral. How are you feeling now at Christmas? Is he doing a good job?
Yeah, I think he's doing a great job. I think, a lot has changed since we spoke last time, because I think that was when we beat Everton. That was sort of before his little blip that he had. I say blip, you know, it was still sort of very, very early days, but we dropped points against Luton. He'd thrown it away against Ipswich in the Cup. We were 2-0 up and ended up getting knocked out. We lost 3-2. And then we had City coming up. at Molineux, and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh!" And he changed system against City. And although you could look at the stats from that game, and you think, "Oh my god, Wolves got absolutely demolished," because I think we won 2-1 and had one shot on target because they scored an own goal. But I think in regards to this is the way that he beat Manchester City. He did it absolutely bang on, and Wolves played really well. And from there on, it's just really kicked on. Obviously, there's been some disappointing results, but I think the way he's addressed things, the way he's spoken in the media about things, for such a young manager, inexperienced manager, he's done a really good job. And yeah, so far so good. I think, Ian, I'm impressed with what I'm seeing so far. Things could change very, very quickly in football. From today, you could go on a 5-match losing streak, and I don't think I'll be saying the same thing. But for the resources that he had, I think he's done well, and it'll be interesting to see how well he's backed in January and obviously in the summer, as long as he's still here.
Yeah, I think from the outside looking in, he's doing a good job. That's not necessarily always the case, which is why we do these shows, to get the proper view. From the outside, I think he's doing a good job. And like I said, I do think if you maybe get 1 or 2 in January, I think he could be, a late push possibly for 7th or 8th. What I do want to talk about is my club a little bit from where you sit, and you're looking over at the turmoil at Goodison, whether it be the deductions, the fans' reaction to the punishment, the severity of the punishment, or whether you believe that's fair. We've also copied one of your banners, the big corrupt banner that you guys started. We've now got that as well. But what's your opinion on what's happened at my club this season?
Well, obviously you guys will know all the ins and outs a lot more than I do. I think the way that Everton have dealt with it on the field is quite good. I know obviously you dropped points in the last couple of games, but I think, you got yourselves out of that mess quite quickly. I don't mean this in a disrespectful way to Everton. I think they're quite fortunate in the fact that I think there are very weak sides in the Premier League this season. So I think if it was going to happen to them, I think this season is an okay one for it to happen. Yeah. And I think Everton have just been a little bit unlucky because they've almost been. I think we'll see point deductions like this to come over the next few years. I think City and Chelsea are the obvious ones, but I think Everton have been quite unlucky because they're sort of the first team that it's happened to, and the FA or the Premier League or whoever have almost had to prove a point. Obviously, I know City and Chelsea is a lot more complex because they've bent the rules a hell of a lot more than Everton have. But it was interesting because going back to Wolves very quickly, we had a very similar situation. We spent a lot of money since coming back into the Premier League, and even the year before we came into the Premier League. And this year, the club almost just slammed the brakes on any spending. And fans got really frustrated by it. They couldn't understand. Fans were trying to do the sums, or saying, "Look, on financial fair play, we could be in profit." And basically, the owner came out and made a statement and said, he didn't say it to these words, but basically saying, "Look, the FA are going to punish us if we spend any more money," and that's ultimately what happened to you guys. And I think he almost, he must have had a little chuckle to himself when, and again, not in a disrespectful way to Everton, but looking at the Wolves fans thinking, "Look, this is what could have happened if we spent more money in the summer." So I think our club were very, very careful of it. I think Everton have been unfortunate, but like I said, I think you guys are more than good enough to stay up. I think Dyche has got letting the football do the talking, and it should be okay for you guys. But I'd assume, from the terraces and stuff, it's a really almost worrying at times, but frustrating time for Everton fans as well.
Yeah, it's created, Dave, a bit of a siege mentality because, as you know, when you go with your friends to the game, you all have different opinions, and what I mean by that is, some people will like the goalkeeper, they won't like the goalkeeper. Some people like the manager, they won't like the manager. And that's usually your talking point throughout the week. All that ended with our fans. It was just a siege mentality, everybody together. And it felt a little bit, you guys have probably been there as well. It felt like us versus the world, and it still does. Because I understand when other clubs, other fan bases, laugh and mock, because that's probably do the same. That's what it's all about. Football is the most important of the unimportant things in life. You should be able to laugh. So get all that. That just adds to it for me. It makes us feel like it's us versus everybody. And you'll know as well, Dave, with the standard of officiating in the league this season as well, that opens Pandora's box to think, is there corruption? Is there bias? Do these big teams get away? You guys are one of the first with the penalty instance at Old Trafford this season.
Yeah.
I was like, how the hell is that not a penalty? And I think you've been on the ends of quite a few, and your fans are starting to make noise in a different way to us, but still highlighting there's an issue here. So you guys probably know what that's like yourself, to have that siege mentality. The standard of officiating for me, Dave, has just been so bad. There's no consistency. I looked at one last night where where Tottenham gave away a penalty for an identical situation that they didn't get away with, that they got away with one, sorry, against us. And you're looking at it going, they're either both a penalty or not a penalty. And there's a guy who's got the capabilities of making that decision in an office somewhere.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on firstly the standard of officiating and secondly the use of VAR at the moment? Because for me, it's just chaos.
Yeah, I think chaos is a good word. I think the idea of VAR, the actual sort of system itself, I think is okay. It's just that they need to figure out a way for it to work on a consistent basis. I think there's no sort of middle ground really. There's the first phrase they ever used was that clear and obvious thing, and it doesn't make any sense because there are things that are clear and obvious. You know, a player goes down and gets fouled. The ref couldn't see it, so we'll play on. Yeah, but it's clearly and obviously a penalty, so go and have a look and swap it. But yeah, the standard of officiating has been shocking. And like you said, you know, we've been on the end of some howlers this year. United right at the start of the year. I could probably pick out 3 or 4 others. Against Fulham, we lost the game 3-2. There was 2 or 3 instances that went against us in that game as well. And like you said, we have made a little bit of noise about it. We tried to. I'm not 100% for. Your situation is different because Everton have been stung by it. I wasn't 100% for the sort of big banners and tifos at the ground. I think you can make your noise in different ways. But Wolves did it, and sod's law since we've done it, or a week or so before, our officiating standards have been okay, and we haven't really been stung by any bad VAR decisions. But they've got to address it. They've got to address the system. I think the guys on the pitch are getting a little bit too relying a bit too much on the guys at Stockley Park, and then the guys at Stockley Park are almost trusting their friends on the pitch because they don't want to make them look like idiots. But I think they've just got to both own up and say, look, let's make the right decision one way or another. But this year, I've never known there to be so many howlers. You know, the one Liverpool Spurs when he disallowed the goal, which should have been a goal, and so on. There's so many of those. But yeah, that's something that really, really needs to be addressed sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I don't mind that one. That was a funny one. That one. It wasn't too bad. I think Ian Wright was spot on. I was listening to Ian Wright, and he was talking about how we've got the best league in the world. And what comes with that is you go and attract the best coaches, you go and attract the best players. The biggest TV companies around the world, they've got eyes on this product, but yet you let the same group of friends who've all come up and made mistakes together continue to officiate. Why can't those officials... If there's a player who is not good enough to play in the Premier League, he doesn't play in the Premier League. He has to forge a career lower down or elsewhere, i.e. Scotland or Wales. Yeah. It should be the same for referees. If you're not good enough to officiate in England in the Premier League, you shouldn't. But that's a whole new podcast for a whole. We'd be here for hours. Going into Saturday, Dave, how are Wolves looking injury-wise, fitness-wise? Have you got any suspensions or injuries, or are you looking okay?
We're looking okay, to be fair. I think, you know, we've Hwang picked up a little knock against Brentford after his 2 goals, but they reckon he might be okay. Craig Dawson picked up a knock against Chelsea, but again, he might be available for this game. And obviously, Pedro Neto's back. He was in the squad against Brentford. He was going to come on for the last 15 minutes, but we scored our 4th goal, so Gary O'Neill kept him on the bench. So I think he'll be close to fitness as well for this game. I don't think he'll start against Everton, but I think definitely he'll come on and hopefully make an impact. But for the first time in a little while, we've got a pretty, you know, fully fit and fully available squad.
Yeah, our big one is Abdoulaye Doucouré. He's been missing. He went off injured in the Burnley win, and we haven't seen him since. And that was, I think that was 2 weeks ago, or 2.5 weeks ago, and the manager at the time said it's 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah. He got asked yesterday at his press conference, the manager, and he said it's going to be a late call. And the manager also pointed to there's half a season left. This is just one game. If he plays 60 minutes here and then he's out for 6 weeks, exactly. So I think he's the big one for me, Dave. I think if Abdoulaye Doucouré plays, I'd be a lot more confident in Everton winning the game. I think Everton have set up away from home really good this season. I think Sean Dyche is an expert at letting you have the ball and still winning a game of football. Some of the games we've won this season, 30% possession. And you're winning games and you're thinking, good God. So if Everton come to Wolves on Saturday and we give you the ball and we ask you to break us down, is that a problem for Wolves or will that suit you?
I think that's a problem for Wolves, personally. I think we like to play, not necessarily with games with as little as 30%, but there have been games. Oh, I say that actually. I think we have won games between 30 and 40% possession. the games that we've won, especially at Molineux, are against big teams that come and want to play and attack against us, and then we hit them on the counter. Against Brentford, at their place, I think that was a big, they gifted us a couple of goals, but they came out and played, and their defence was all over the place. We took advantage of that.
Yeah.
The games we struggled in, Forest at home, and I don't want to say they parked the bus, but they sat really deep and again wanted to play on the counter, and it allowed Wolves to have a lot of the ball, and Wolves had to play high, and it cost us. West Ham away, same thing. They allowed us to have the ball, and it didn't work. So this will be an interesting task. Obviously, our momentum and our morale is high after the last 2 weeks, but or the last week, I should say. But it'll be interesting to see what Wolves do to beat Everton, because we historically have struggled against teams with that low block and teams that do allow us to have the ball. So yeah, I'll be intrigued to see how we set up for this match.
Yeah, I think if you lose the ball high up, which is what Tottenham's done a few times when nearly punished them. If you lose the ball in our area, we break at such pace.
Yeah.
And it's strange because we haven't got a lot of pacey players, but we just break in numbers. So I think that's something Wolves will have to look out for. I think if Everton are going to win this game, which I actually think that we will. And that's no disrespect to Wolves. I just fancy us on Saturday.
Yeah.
And I think you've got to be careful with that. I think you're probably best trying to bore the first 15, 20 out of it, which is hard in front of your home fans. I know that. And your fans are going to look at Everton come and go, and we should be beating Everton. And again, I get that. But I think Wolves' best chance is to just bore the game out for the first 15, 20 and then try and get into it. Because if you fall into our trap, which is there's the ball, the minute you lose it, we hit you, I think Everton would win the game. My prediction is that's what's going to happen, Dave. I think Everton win the game 1-0, and I think the goal comes in a situation like that. I'll flip it over to you. How do you see it going on Saturday?
Well, yeah, I think, obviously, interesting what you were saying there. I think Wolves, not so much the last couple of weeks, but we were conceding a lot of early goals. I think if we concede early, that will be almost, end of the game, I think, because Everton, and especially Dyche, will organise you and be able to sit on a lead for such a long period of time. On the flip side of that, if Wolves can score an early goal, that means Everton will have to come out a little bit more, and obviously that could work in our favour. But our home form is phenomenal, and I think Everton are a really good side. But I think we're 7 unbeaten at home now. We're playing well there. So if I had to pick a winner, I'd probably say Wolves will edge it 2-1. But I don't think it'll be an easy game. I think I'll probably take a point, especially as we've won our last 2 games. Just keep on a nice little run of form. And Everton, despite the last couple of weeks of results, have been very, very good. So I'd probably say, as we're at home, give us the home advantage. I'd say 2-1 Wolves.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Both fans predicting their team to win. No moaning on this channel. No one's negative. We're all being positive, which is what it's all about. Look, Dave is from one of the biggest, if not the biggest, Wolves fan channel, and it's over at talkingwolves.co.uk. They will sell you a t-shirt, they will stream you a video. They're absolutely massive. So I'm sure there's some fans, Dave, who are watching this, following you. Let them know what's coming up over on your channel over the new year.
Yeah. So, we've got plenty out already this week. Obviously, reactions to the Brentford game, preview for this game and the reaction. We always do fans react as well, where fans send me in their thoughts after the Everton game. So, depending on the result, you might want to see what they say. And then loads of, obviously, transfer bits and pieces over the next month as well, which I'm looking forward to. It's always a good time as a football fan and as a sort of a YouTuber when the transfer news comes about, because it's always a busy time. But, yeah, thanks for having me on, Ian. Looking forward to the game.
No, I appreciate it. I'm a subscriber over at Talking Wolves, and I look at their content. It's really, really good. But Dave, it's a pleasure for coming on again. I think this will probably be us, barring an FA Cup draw. We'll just keep in touch on the Twitter and stuff now. But if I don't speak to you, mate, have a fantastic New Year with the family. Enjoy the rest of your break, and thanks for joining us on Across the Park podcast.
You too, mate. You too. Thank you very much.